Kathy Marr, our Vice President, will be monitoring the chat when it comes to question time. I want to thank, first of all, the planning team that helped put this meeting together. If you are Ann Keith, Kathy Marr, or Julie Stackhouse, please stand up. Please stand up. Excellent. Yeah, thank you. All right. Team leaders, too numerous to name. There are about 15 or so team leaders. If you are a team leader for the Larimer League, please stand up. Team leaders, stand up. All right, thank you very much. If you are a member of the board of directors, please stand up. The board of the League of Women Voters of Larimer County, please stand up. All right. If you are sitting next to one of these people that just stood up, please take a moment to give them a big thank you, maybe shake their hand, introduce yourself. Okay. Okay, we would like to take a minute to recognize our new team members. We're Linda Mahan, who has been a league member for over 40 years. Amazing. Yeah. Is going to say a few words.
Thank you. So there was such a rush of new people in this last year as well as this year. I think it's over 60. So the flood of you that came tonight, I'm going to try and read your name and stand up. Hopefully you got a name tag with a red dot on it. So that would indicate to other people that you're new. So these are the people that I know that registered. Perhaps they're in Zoom land. Susan Canny. Is she here? I don't think she walked in the room. Okay. Sylvia Dorado. No. Pam Jackson. Maybe online. Jim Sawyer. He is here. There's Jim. And Rebecca Southall. She is here, Rebecca. Yes, Rebecca. Yes, stand up. Lori Kluke is here. Nancy Burns is here. Is Sarah Wood here? Did she slip in? Yes, she did. All right. And Sharon Smith is here. And Mary Bowman. All right, now, if anyone else that's new today that hasn't stood up, please do that.
Your name, please. Nice.
Dee Morris, thank you.
And Susan Leopold.
She's a returning member. Returning member, Susan, yeah.
Susan Leopold.
Yes, I also want to just say thank you to all the members who have renewed. We have about 90% of our members that do renew in August, September, October. So thank you for doing that promptly, filling out your profile and getting your dues in. That really helps us. And then one new thing this year, if you want to have a magnetic name tag, we have a sample over on the table. These are for people who do things outside of our league meetings. We're going to continue to keep the necklace name tags for our meetings, but if you speak at high schools or you do observing a board or commission and you want to have a league name tag, we are going to make those available to order. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. Okay. So most of you have heard a land acknowledgement in the past read at the beginning of a meeting. We have a standard one, which we usually read, where we acknowledge that the land we stand on was once the land of many native tribes. I'm not going to read that tonight, as to many, it seems to be routine and perfunctory. I would like us all to stop and reflect for a moment about the history of our state and the world, really, for a moment, and think about all the heinous acts of mistreatment that continue to happen. If you are not familiar with the ways these acts influenced the state we now live in, please consider devoting some time to read something, talk to someone, think about, share with your family and friends what you have learned. The members of the League acknowledge that this history continues to affect us today. We will never forget, and we will remember the past so history doesn't repeat itself. I am pleased to introduce our keynote speaker, Neal McBurnett. Mr. McBurnett has helped improve election integrity since 2002. That's a dozen years ago. He obviously has great patience and stamina, at least. He is a Boulder resident, and the Boulder has used his open source election audit software, and the first place outside of California to do so. And they adopted a risk limiting audit approach in 2010. Neal was involved with the Colorado Risk Limiting Audit Project in 2013. This now happens regularly for statewide races since 2017. He is the league representative on the Colorado Bipartisan Election Advisory Commission and the Board of Verified Voting. He is also active with the Center for Election Science, which promotes promotional representation, approval voting, star voting, and other related democracy reforms, which he will touch upon tonight, hopefully, because I don't even know what a lot of those are. Neal is a proud member of the League of Women Voters for decades, and he's active in the Boulder League's voting methods team. Please welcome our esteemed presenter, Neal McBurnett.
My goodness, what a kind introduction. It is an honor to come in front of such a vigorous group with your materials in the back showing how active you are in so many areas. The League is truly an amazing organization, and it's because of folks like you. So keep showing up. Next slide. I'm gonna, you've already heard, I think, too much about my involvement here. There we go. So we can skip that. You've heard that. And let me talk about the big picture of election integrity. So in 2000, a lot of you will remember there were questions raised during Bush versus Gore. And suddenly people were focused on newspaper articles and TVs with people looking at pregnant chads and dimpled chads and paper doing all kinds of interesting things that happen when all the people come to vote. They were also election integrity questions raised in 2020. There are kind of in every election in which there's a loser who is really passionate and is willing to say, gosh, we should pay close attention to actually how we count ballots. And I celebrate all people that celebrate election integrity, you know, with integrity. So who argues can depend on who loses. And I just want to, you know, have us try to stay, as the League does, out of partisan issues and think really about how can we make sure that the losers actually do trust the results and say, I will bow out honorably. And I certainly want to preface this with a notion that all election administrators that I have, I can't say that I've met quite, but that I've worked with have high integrity, and I bow to them. And I actually got at a Colorado County Clerks Association meeting, which I attend every 6 months as an observer, as a collaborator with the Colorado clerks. They are my heroes, election administrators in general. I mean, these are people who, given all the furor, are still willing to show up around the clock and on election day and before and after election day and make it happen, right? With a lot of stressful circumstances. So salutations, saluting all the election officials that make this happen. And Colorado has an amazingly collaborative, bipartisan group of election officials that really just care about doing the job right. So, but at the same time, I want to acknowledge that not everybody trusts every election official, and that makes sense. I was actually in Grand Junction for the Clerks Association meeting a month ago, Tina Peters was on trial, and I actually attended her trial briefly. She gave unauthorized people privileged access to her voting system. I think she actually did it for what she thought were honorable reasons. So the way that the press sometimes reports it is a little weird, but not everyone trusts all the people working in elections. And so that's why what we want to do is have very clear, transparent processes that everybody can trust. So that's my goal, to support secure and transparent elections. Next slide. And what I use to describe that, the technical term is evidence-based elections. This is a paper, actually defended in a paper a while ago by some folks that I know, that really lay out the notion that to convince people of the results, you give them very transparent and auditable and audited evidence of all the steps that go into a secure election. Principal among those is voter verified paper ballots. So this means that the actual ballot that is counted by the systems and the ballot that is audited is something that a voter physically touched and verified that it has all the votes that they want. This seems like basic stuff, but then people try to do fantastically innovative things like voting online or voting with machines that don't print paper, or making things accessible under some circumstances in different ways, and neglect this point. And without that tangible record, computer scientists, of whom I am one, note that computers are very flexible. They will do what the people who control them want them to do. And hopefully that's what all of us want them to do, but we can't be sure of that. So paper is actually the computer scientist go-to solution for secure elections. One of the things that people often say is, gosh, I vote online. I mean, I do my banking online. I do commerce online. You know, I trust all kinds of computers all the time, every day. And the difference between that and what we do in the voting booth is the bank knows who we are. We know who the bank is. We can compare notes, double entry bookkeeping. All these things help us deal with the inevitable occasional function. And so with voting, you can't do that. You put a ballot in a box, it doesn't have your name on it. There is no way later on to go to the clerk and say, no, I voted for Washington, not Benedict Arnold. You can't resolve it later on unless you preserve this paper trail. There are some other approaches, but they really are not worked out yet. So, and we had consensus on voter verified paper ballots and auditing of those ballots back in 2003 in Boulder County. I was very proud that we had Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, Greens, all signed a single notion that we wanted that at a time when people were advocating for a digital reporting electronic, a computer that you and say, this is how I'm going to vote. At the end, it waves an American flag for you because it's pretty and attractive, and it tells you that it recorded your vote. But if it's just a computer with no tangible evidence, please don't trust it, because I'm a computer scientist. And the national academies, the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee, everyone agrees that you really need, nearly everyone, that you really need these characteristics in evidence-based elections. Next slide. But there was, as I just kind of noted, reckless computerization in response to what happened in Florida with Bush v. Gore. People were a little nervous about paper because there was a badly designed paper system, had some ambiguous marks on it, and that was a problem. But the result through politics was to give a lot of money for a lot of machines that did not have paper. And even in Colorado, we did that. And even the National League said, for good reasons, you know, accessible voting is very important. We made a national commitment to making it possible for disabled voters to vote privately, independently, unlike previously where you often would walk into a voting booth and have someone help you vote. We don't want to force people to have to trust someone else with their vote. But they took it too far and they didn't involve paper. So next slide. There were also some other things going on back in 2006, which is really the focus of part of my story here, which is that there was a move to vote centers. Instead of having to vote in a precinct, you could vote anywhere. That meant that a paper poll book was hard to do, so we made them electronic, and again, computers failed a little bit. There were long lines, bottom line, back in 2004, 2006. There was a big mess in Denver County with kind of just people dropping the ball. It was a tough year. So next slide. Somehow we got to the Colorado that we know now, which is often cited in national comparisons as a leader in election integrity, certainly a leader in auditing, in transparency. Number one in registration rate for eligible voters. So we really get out there, and I know a lot of you are involved in Get Out the Vote and registration drives. We're in the top 3 in turnout, that is people that actually show up and vote by eligible voters. And there is a league report that I urge you to look at, titled Colorado's Innovative and Stellar Election System, that we put together a couple of years ago for the national convention, which was held in Denver 2 years ago. So there's a lot of great stuff. And what I'm trying to talk about is, first of all, don't rest on laurels. Don't say, well, why doesn't everybody do it so easy? Colorado does it. Why don't you do it? There were some really big steps that were needed to get us there. And other states still need to go through some of those steps and are going through them. And elections are more complicated than you might think. So that's really, I'm trying to dig into details. And I know, it'd be nice for me to come up here and just say, Colorado system is great. The whole system in the country is great. Don't worry about it. No problem. Everything's taken care of. I don't want to do that, because I want you all at the end to feel like, yeah, I should get involved. Yes, citizens should be kicking the wheels, checking things out. Clerks, are my concerns being taken care of? So next slide, please. So the big thing that I thought about just around the time that you all asked for a speaker, I thought there was a lawsuit that hardly anyone knows about or thinks about in 2006 that was a real slap in the face for Colorado, for elections actually nationwide. And there was a group called Voter Action USA and other activists that sued the Secretary of State and said, you did a terrible job of certifying all the voting systems, and they're not actually secure. A lot of them are these digital record electronic systems. They're just a computer that you expect people to go up to, type something on, watch a waving American flag, and feel good, with no tangible result of that, subject to whoever controls that computer, whether it's the manufacturer, whether it's the clerk, whether it's an infiltrator in the office or an external attacker. All those people could and have been able to affect votes like that. So there was this lawsuit. Someone I know, Mariah Conroy in Boulder, was the lead plaintiff. And the results of that lawsuit have had repercussions that have gone on for a long time. So I'm just going to touch on it a little bit. In fact, the attention to security in the certification process was pretty miserable. The digital record electronic systems were insecure, have been almost everywhere in the country rooted out by now, but it took a lot of work to get there. And this was a violation of their rights, on your rights under the Constitution, to vote in a way that is secure, in a way that your vote and other people's votes actually are counted right and matter. It's pretty important. So the judge ruled in favor of the plaintiffs within just a couple of months. It was a very quick process compared to some trials we see. And the judge didn't stop everything and say, oh my goodness, you got to replace your systems. Here it is in, I think it was September or October, just before the election, big election, the judge said, you're going to have to retest all those systems. Well, they did. They tested the systems and they decertified all the digital record electronic systems. And they decertified some of the other systems that were just not really up to snuff. Around this process, this slap in the face to like, gosh, we thought we were trying to do the right thing. And here we have evidence that it wasn't good, that got in people's minds, maybe they shouldn't trust these systems. And there was a big upsurge in use of vote by mail. We call it vote by mail, but as you all probably know, not that many put their ballot in the post service to get back. It arrives from the post service, but you'll drop it off in a drop box. And that's just a way to have that better feeling that you saw it get, you know, in the custody of the election administrators. By 2008, in fact, 50% of Coloradans were voting in that method with a ballot that they asked to be delivered to their home. And all of this set off other things that we'll see. So next slide. So indeed, the Secretary of State ran the 2006 election. It had various other problems with lines and so on. And by the way, you're going to run into problems with lines if you expect everybody to vote on a computer, because computers are expensive, especially voting computers are expensive because they make a pretty penny. And how many of those are you going to buy for the surges in people voting that happen at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, at lunch hour? It's an expensive way to try to vote, and it can disenfranchise people, as we see still in other states, just by long lines and keeping people, when they're available to vote, from voting. So all the DREs were decertified, and a lot of other systems were certified only according to certain conditions of use. You had to audit them way better than they had been audited before. You had to install physical security checks and so on that were not common at the time. And I have some links. At the end, there'll be a link to where you can see this whole presentation, and the blue links you can open up and find out more details if you're interested. At any rate, so once again, in 2007, the systems were decertified, and the legislature was then handed the responsibility for saying, well, what do you do, you know? And the legislature said, well, we can't suddenly replace an entire statewide system of voting. So we're going to temporarily certify them for another year, and we're going to establish a task force to deal with it. So look at the next slide. So temporarily, again, we voted with these systems with some extra conditions of use, created an election reform commission, stakeholders from all kinds of places, and put them on notice that, you know, without any further action, these systems were only certified again for yet another year. So decide what you want to do about that. And the Reform Commission agreed to allow the use of these DREs if clerks really insisted on it for several more years. But by 2014, they needed to be replaced. So again, they're trying to do this in an orderly way, but they're making it clear that you have to do something. Next slide. And indeed, thus, there were some of these places that had computers that we trusted. And we don't know. I mean, I don't want to cast aspersions on the clerks that were doing hard work and that had good reasons for trying to do this and didn't maybe understand some of the computer science that I'll emphasize. But ultimately, I would say it's true that we don't know what happened with those elections. I assume that there weren't problems, pretty much, but and there would be no evidence. That's really one of the biggest issues that we have. We wouldn't know if somebody changed votes on one of those computers. So that's not the place we want to be. We want to actually record votes on paper and then audit the paper so that we have evidence that the outcome is correct, rather than saying, yeah, we didn't see anything go wrong, so it must be okay. And again, to emphasize that that using computers in elections in a voting place is important for accessibility. When people use an accessible voting system, though, to the extent possible, they should print something out, not trust, again, the waving flag. I love to talk about those waving flags that give everyone, I mean, we feel proud. We like to vote, wear our I voted sticker, right? It's all important. But the piece of paper is the thing that the voter must actually verify. And we have evidence that very few people actually look at the paper that they take out of one of these machines. So we moved from this notion of a DRE, a digital record electronic, only an electronic ballot, to a system that helps you mark a ballot. It's like a really fancy pencil or pen. We want to use a pen. That is accessible for people with a whole variety of disabilities. And that that machine, a BMD, ballot marking device, does not store any of the votes. You don't go back to the machine to find out what the results are. You look at the paper it produces and you scan that paper in a scanner, just like you scan all the hand-marked ballots. So they're important for auditability, but please urge people to actually verify them. Go ahead. Along the line, we also moved to all-mail balloting. So this is a model in which we send a ballot out to everyone who is active and registered. And the numbers of people that chose to do that before it was the default way ranged from 50% in 2008 up to 2/3 by 2012. And then the legislature changed the system in another effort to help improve our turnout and our registration numbers, and now do send a ballot to all registered voters, as you experience. Typically, 3 to 7% of people do actually choose to go and vote in person, and there are cool reasons for that. I mean, a lot of us like the idea of showing up and seeing people voting and getting a physical sticker and all those things. But that's another mark of Colorado's innovation here. Next slide. I want to touch briefly on integrity in an even broader perspective. So the voting method that we use is really important. A voting method that doesn't help ensure that your vote actually makes a difference is not doing a very good job. And the integrity, the degree to which the outcomes reflect what the people voted for is compromised. So first of all, there is an initiative. You may not even know the number yet, but it is Initiative 316, recently decided on, that gathered signatures and made it onto the election for this year. And it is a primary reform. It reforms how we do primaries. The notion is that if people pay for a primary, they should be able to vote for it. And there are people, unaffiliated voters have had to choose between a couple different primaries in recent years, but have been able to vote. But voters affiliated with other parties have not been able to even choose to vote in the primary of their choice. So this method, and I could go into, it's probably longer than we have time for now, but it's going to allow everyone to vote for all the candidates who might show up in the November election during the primary election in June. And that kind of reform, in my mind, is very important. The League statewide has endorsed Initiative 316. And so that's, I think, uncontroversial. What happens is everyone runs in the same primary. everyone votes in that primary in June. The top four, the final four, as they say, highest vote getters in that conventional primary, vote for one, show up on a ballot. So only 4 voters, candidates in the November election. And the method of voting for that is instant runoff voting. I'm going to call it instant runoff voting because that makes it clear that there is a single winner and that you rank the candidates and that you use a particular method of eliminating the lowest vote getter in each round. A lot of people call that ranked choice voting. That name is a marketing term that kind of obfuscates what's going on and has applied to both great methods, I'll talk about in a minute, helpful methods like instant runoff voting, and also a terrible method used in Utah where the result is not only the normal tyranny of the majority, but kind of an enhanced tyranny of the majority because individual voters actually count for multiple winners. It's a terrible system. It's called ranked choice voting. I urge people not to use that term because it's ambiguous in ways that you don't even know if it's a good thing or not. I also want to note that no voting method can guarantee a majority winner. This is a talking point that happens often with instant runoff voting. But if you just think about it, you can't put a gun at people. If there's 3 candidates, you can't put a gun at people's head and say you have to vote for, and support one of the top 2 winners. You might just only rank one candidate. You could have a very small percentage of the people actually supporting the final winner. The way that they rationalize this is to say, well, we look at the number of people voting in the final round after we've eliminated other candidates, which also eliminates people who didn't vote for one of those 2 candidates. And we saw in Alaska, actually, there was a situation where Mr. Begich would have beaten either of the other 2 candidates head to head. So clearly, I would call that a majority winner, but was eliminated just before the final round because he happened to have the smallest number of first place votes at that point in time. So in no way is that a majority winner the way that I see it. And most of the analysts that I see it. So it's complicated. I'm not trying to say terrible things about ranking or instant runoff voting. There is no perfect voting method. I happen to love approval voting. It's very simple. You just vote for as many as you want. But just to know that there are a lot of choices for how to do this November election with 4 candidates that are good. You need to do something better than what we do now to avoid the spoiler effect. But you do run into these problems. There is a league explainer of final 4 voting. It's on the state webpage. It goes into this sort of stuff in more detail. And there's lots more material I could show you. It's probably more than I'm probably running out of time here, but I'm almost done. So next slide. And how secure is our system now? I want to end on a good note. I think we're doing wonderful things. I gave a very detailed talk to the Bipartisan Election Advisory Commission last December. And to summarize, we are a leader in voter turnout. We have great bipartisan cooperation. We have great tabulation audits in the sense that we surface an enormous amount of data, unlike hardly anywhere else. These help election officials protect their elections against outsiders because the election officials can see all the information. My suggestion is that they need improvement so that the public can verify that the actually verified the results of the election. And there are subtle and complicated reasons why that's not yet the case. And we're working on it. And so there's links to other ways that we can improve things. I've got kind of what was an 8-point plan that is now, they've mostly taken care of the first point, but there's still about 7 things that I think could be improved. But it's significantly better than nearly any other state. And I think we should be proud of it. And, we should have confidence, but we should check. We should ask questions. We should not blindly accept what computers print out. Next slide. There are some states, Indiana, for all in-person voters, still uses a digital recorded electronic. You don't get a paper outcome of that if someone hacked those systems. Heaven knows what would happen if they find out. Georgia used to be in that situation. They switched to paper, but they do it with everyone using a ballot marking device. So that it's an expensive system. They have over 30,000 systems statewide. There are so many systems they can't even keep up to date with the bug fixes that the vendor provides. And there are some serious bugs in their system as deployed today. Their vendor has fixed them over a series of years, but they haven't upgraded their systems for several years, and they don't plan to upgrade before this election because they have so many systems to upgrade, and it's a big, hard task. All these things are complicated and difficult. I'm not so much casting aspersions as saying, keep paying attention and avoid the conspiracy theories, but also, ask intelligent questions. So there's a major lawsuit run by some really good folks, and I'm hoping for a useful result in Georgia, but who knows what we'll get. Next slide. So hopefully I've motivated you that this is maybe a little more worth your time than you might have wished. Voting is the fundamental right we have in our society. If we don't have the right to vote, then, who's to say what rules and laws and practices and whatever happen? So we need to pay attention, sign up with your county clerk, be an elections worker, show up at the risk limiting audit. That is the bulwark between, and by the way, I guess the risk limiting audit simply takes, big piles of paper and the electronic results that were derived from those paper ballots. And we have a record for each individual piece of paper. We have the interpretation of that paper according to the voting system. And we just randomly sample and say, does this match? Yeah. Does this match? Yeah. Does this match? Some appropriately sized sample, depending on the margin. And we then get evidence that this stack of paper has the same outcome as the announced outcome. It's a very straightforward, although sometimes mystified thing. It's not that mystifying. You just look at the paper. So observe that. I find it fascinating. That's because I helped write it. But get appointed as a watcher. Parties can appoint watchers. Help us pass laws so that unaffiliated voters can watch and can, just have the right to watch as opposed to needing to be anointed by a candidate or an issue committee to watch. Ask questions, and that's where the presentation is online. I hope that didn't take too long, but I would love to hear questions. That's how I learn things. In the front row.
Thank you.
All
right, question.
Neal, thank you so much for a really clear and interesting presentation. As I've looked into this just a little bit myself, I know some of the concerns that some folks have with vote by mail systems has to do with the actual process of, does the person, are they who they say they are? Do they have an ID? Do they show the ID? And the second thing is, what about the process of marking it and folks that are helping them to vote? And in fact, they're not really voting. Someone's changing the vote and taking that in. How are we doing in Colorado on that issue, and any ideas you've got?
Yeah, I actually think I skipped over a line that was going to remind me to talk about that. So thank you for getting to it. Second thing first, in terms of assistance, all voters in Colorado should know that by law, we provide accessible systems, and they can, I'm not saying this is easy, especially for people that have trouble getting to the polling place. And in Oregon, they actually will bring an accessible system to your house and let you vote at home with an accessible system. So that's something that I hope that we adopt, as opposed to something like internet voting, which we do some of. And, I'm not happy with the amount of it that we do. So, hopefully people don't need assistance. When they do, we face exactly the issue that they are now relying on somebody else, and that's undesirable. To the eligibility question, so one of the concerns certainly for these absentee ballots, these ballots, is that so you sign the envelope and close your ballot in to return, and you sign it the way that you sign it. Now, the people in this room, if I look closely, most of the people in this room have a signature. They've been using it for decades. They know their signature. Maybe they it ages over time, but it's probably pretty similar to what is on the records. It's been verified for a while. It's good. 18-year-olds, not so much. 18-year-olds at age 16, soon at age 15, you walk into a Division of Motor Vehicles office. They get a little pad, a little electronic pad. They use their finger on the pad to do something because they don't maybe even have a signature. Nobody might have asked for their autograph. They don't hand in papers like this. They don't necessarily have a signature, okay? And so they do something a couple of years ago, and now someone gives them a ballot envelope and says, sign this. And then we have people compare those. I mean, first of all, there are some states that ask for signatures, but don't look at them. They don't compare them to anything. They accept them as evidence. They could use them forensically if they needed to, but they don't have a regular practice of even checking them. I would be concerned in states like that it is easier for someone at scale to pretend to vote for a lot of voters. And we should be doing careful things to look for evidence that maybe there's two ballots from the same person, or maybe even asking voters, sending them a note, gosh, you voted and thanks so much. And by the way, if you didn't, let us know. It's tricky. It's hard to do. It's much easier to trust that system when you show up in person. And there are colleagues of mine that are on the path saying, we can't do this. And my response is, well, gosh, a lost vote, a disenfranchised person who couldn't vote because they couldn't get to the polling place or they were overseas or whatever, that's just as bad as that's a terrible thing. And so we want to bend over backwards. Colorado, with signature verification audits, they're very hard to do because people disagree on whether this is a match or not. And you don't want to send out too many cure letters. Whenever there's a mismatch, we don't throw the ballot away. Gosh, please come in and give us, a sample. Or now you can do that via text. You can send in a text that says, here's my signature. It's a difficult system, Sorry. Next question.
Next question.
Hi, thanks. Do you have any good book recommendations for if someone were wanting to learn more about election reform or election methods?
I actually put on the floor for me to take with me as I came here a book called Broken Ballots. It came out, I don't know, maybe a decade ago. And it paints, it is by some real voting experts. It looks at a lot of the things that I've talked about through the same kind of lens. So Broken Ballots by Douglas Jones and Barbara Simons. I don't have other good ones off the top of my head, but and there are certainly ones that I'm not too. It's a great question. I should jot that down as update my suggestions.
Hi, Neal. Thanks for a great talk. I might have this name wrong, but a lot of states have backed out of, I think it's called ALEC.
Eric.
Eric,
E-R-I-C.
got it. I knew it was some man's name. And really, it seemed to be a system that worked really well to see if there were people doing double voting. Can you just reflect a little bit on states that have backed out and how it's going to affect our elections?
Yeah, and I'll just tee this up. It's a great question. We have a state-by-state election system. I mean, Jimmy Carter audits and reviews elections across the world. He refuses, his organization uses to monitor US elections because they're so complicated. There's 7,000 jurisdictions responsible for some aspect of this, and they inevitably have state registration systems, and there is no law that requires making sure that you're only registered in a single state. And it's a hard thing to do the way that we do identity. So there is a system called ERIC, E-R-I-C. I don't remember the name, but it's a voluntary system that Colorado was a leader in joining, that a lot of states have joined. As I recall, California is not even a member of ERIC, but they share all of their information in a very carefully anonymized way. I say anonymized, protected, encrypted. There's a better term for it, but basically the other states don't learn who is registered in other states. But if there's a person who shows up from multiple states, that will be flagged. There's a way to discover when people are there from multiple states, and they just send that information back. They say, gosh, it looks like this might be a duplicate with that other state. Can you all figure out, who it really is, or look at other records to try to clean up your voter registration databases? Every now and then you see people complaining about, like how inaccurate our voter registration databases are. And that's a fact. I mean, the people are astonished that we don't just use government records to say this is all the people who are citizens in our country, and this is obviously who's registered to vote. The notion of needing to register to vote is actually, if I recall correctly, an outgrowth of trying to disenfranchise Blacks in the 1870s. So we shouldn't necessarily be proud of it, and it's a tricky thing to do right. And but the fact that we see people, inactive voters, that's kind of good, because inactive voters are likely voters that have already moved out of state, are not eligible. We're not sending them ballots. So tricky things, the way that it has evolved here in the US. Questions? Oh, yeah.
I had a question about ballot tracks.
Yeah.
So I get a text from the county clerk saying your ballot has been delivered to the county clerk's office. And then I get another text saying your ballot has been counted. So obviously there was a link between that piece of paper and me. And how does that link get broken?
That's a great question, and something that I have colleagues that watch in intimate detail, and not always done, people learn all the time. So the way it should happen, and the way it happens when I've been watching, but as I say, show up and watch. You'll get a ballot. I mean, one example, there's a lot of ways to do this, but you'll get a ballot. One side of it has all of your information on it. Judge the sides of a table. One judge sees the signatures and the information, and there's a privacy sleeve inside, although that has changed a little bit. And you pull it out, and the other judge then opens it up and so on in a way that the first one can't see. So the judge on one side knows who you are but doesn't see the ballot. The judge on the other side sees the ballot but didn't see who you were. And we often use computers to try to do some of the signature verification, which all by itself raises questions, but we also audit those pretty well. So there are a variety of methods, but we really do take pains. Election officials, I'm not an election official, do take pains to try to separate that, so that even the people working the process, who are, of course, this is another great thing about really all elections in the country, people from different parties who are cooperating and trying to keep each other honest, we hope. So, show up and volunteer.
Neal, thank you. This has been fascinating. I have to say, just to start with, I had the honor of taking part in a risk limiting audit a couple of years ago, and it's incredible to be part of it and to see exactly how it happens. My question is, what can we do as league members to counter some of the disinformation that's already coming through to make people doubt about what the November elections
Yeah,
are going to be?
that is a great question. And I'm embarrassed that I didn't put that up here because, I mean, first of all, I want to share that what I have heard from skeptics and what I have heard from clerks is that the best way to bridge that gap. And I am again so happy that we have great clerks around. The clerk will say, please come be an election worker. I want you to work, right? And there's often a like, you can't mean that. I mean, I'm the one that's like telling you doing it all wrong. Please, come take a tour, come see how we do things. Did you know that we do this? Did you know that we do that? Bipartisan groups. Did you know that we audit in all these different ways and so on? So most people trust their local election official and their local elections and distrust like the rest of the country, right? Because they don't know about the rest of the country. They kind of have a sense for parts of their local system. But we should send that message to everybody everywhere. Get involved, not only to work, but to ask questions, to learn, et cetera.
Do we have any questions from the Zoom world? We have time for one more question. I haven't heard from this side of the room very much. Anybody?
We had some.
One more question. Oh, okay. We also have some resources. Thank you, Neal. Thank you. Let's give him a big round of applause. Yeah. We have some great resources on the League of Larimer County's website around rumor mills. So good, check it out. You can get a weekly email. It'll say, well, this rumor's going around and what the heck is that all about?
I'll just add to my answer and answer things honestly. Don't just say, oh, it's not a problem. Turn your eyes away. Nothing to see there. Say, we've been through things. We learned things. We're making things better. They're not yet perfect. Please help, right?
And we should be lots to be proud of. Okay, so thank you. For those of you who want to take off now, now's your big chance because we're going to go into some league business. So excellent. I'm glad you're willing to stand up and do that. We're going to go into some league business. So if you want to take this opportunity to leave, please do so. Right now, Heather Solgrove is going to come up and speak to you about our voter services activities in the next few months. We're really busy. So here's Heather, our team leader. Oh.
This one work? All right. Hey. All right. So like she said, I am Heather Solgrove. I am the team leader for the voter services team, and we have been busy. So they have asked me to give you a brief update on what we've been up to. So I have 3 pages and I will go through it as quickly as possible. So for each of our election activities, I'm going to try to give you sort of 2 pieces of information about it. First up, how you can get involved. What do we need? What kind of volunteer opportunities are there? And how can you help? And then also for each activity, I'm going to try to explain how you can benefit from our work to be informed for this upcoming election. So to get started, we're going to start with our ballot issues presentations. So Ann Hall has been organizing our community requests for ballot issues presentations, also our league ballot issue presentation, and one we're doing in partnership with the library. We have about a dozen of those already scheduled. So how you can get involved, we need some presenters and some speakers. Ann is doing a training for speakers this coming Saturday, September 14th, from 9:30 to 11:30 at the Harmony Library. You do not have to be an expert in these issues. You don't even have to know how many there are or what they are yet. Just be willing to get up to speed on them and have some comfort with talking to groups of people about ballot issues. And then how to get informed. we encourage everyone to attend the October general meeting. That is going to be on October 7th from 7 to 9 p.m. It is hybrid, so you can come in person at Foothills Unitarian Church, or we will, if you register on the calendar, we will have a link so that you can watch it virtually. And also, if you go on the calendar, you can see information about the upcoming ballot issues presentations that we're giving with the library. Next up, we have ballot issues pamphlets. So Carol Gersh has done a wonderful job researching, digging into these, and writing summaries of all of our Loveland and Fort Collins ballot issues. We've also ordered state ballot issue materials. So how to get involved? We need people to help us distribute these around the community. So all over Larimer County, including Wellington, Loveland, Berthoud, Fort Collins, Red Feather. Ann Gable is leading that effort. She has a sign-up sheet at our poster in the back. So, and she would love to have help. That's an easy way to get involved and to help us out. So you will pick up some materials from Ann, drive them around, and deliver them around the community. Ann is keeping track of where those go. And so you can work with her on figuring out what would work best for you. How to get informed. We get your hands on some of these pamphlets. The easiest places to get these are going to be at the libraries and at the ballot issues presentation. So that presentation on October 7th for league members and the general public, if you want to bring your friends, we'll have those materials available. The local pamphlets have summaries, background information, provisions, what a yes or no vote means for the local ballot issues. And then the state pamphlets are a bit different this year. There are 14 state issues, so they had to pare back a bit to get it to fit on one piece of paper. So they have information on what a yes vote means, what a no vote means for each of the state ballot measures, as well as QR codes to websites with more in-depth information. Next up, we have candidate forums. So Patty and Michael Neckenchuck have arranged for the league to host 3 fall candidate forums. So we do need volunteers for that. So if you would like to get involved, the dates for those are September 30th, October 2nd, and October 3rd. Those are all in the evening. 2 are in Fort Collins at Fort Collins City Hall, and the October 3rd one is at the Loveland City Council chambers. We need, Judy Weaver is organizing volunteers for candidate forums. She's waving her hand over there. She also has a sign-up sheet at our table in the back, or you can email her, or email for any of this. If you are on Zoom and you would like to get connected with this work or volunteer for something, but you're not here to give us your name, send an email to the voter services email at the top of the voter services webpage. That will come to me and I will send it on to the appropriate people. The other thing, so she is looking for volunteers for moderator, timer, question sorter, and greeter. So talk to her if you have any interest in those. We can also use some more questions for House districts, Senate districts, and the district attorney candidates for those forums. We have a little box in the back if you have a question you just want to drop in now, or you could email them to that same email address on the voter services webpage. And then how to get informed. We would love to have a great turnout for all of those candidate forums. So please consider coming. They are all in the same week. So they are all in the week of September 30th. And you can attend in person, which is a great opportunity to see the candidates, get your questions answered. But we also will be having the 2 that are in Fort Collins will be on Fort Collins TV channel 4 or streaming on the Fort Collins website. And we will send out all this information and have it on the website. So you do not need to remember this. The Loveland one is in person at the Loveland City Council chambers. And then we will be recording these and putting them on Vote for 11 and on the website. So if you can't attend at the time, but you still want to hear the candidates talk about their positions, you can watch it at a later date. So then we have vote411.org. So our Vote 411 team of Ann Thompson, Annette, and Sarah have put together local candidate and ballot issue information for Larimer County candidates and issues. This one, since they've already done all the legwork of contacting the candidates and getting their questions answered and getting the ballot issues in, how you can help with this one is to spread the word. So starting on October 1st, tell your family, friends, neighbors, social media friends, all over about this resource. At the back table, we have bookmarks. Feel free to take a few extras if you think you might run into people you might like to pass those on to. And definitely use it to get yourself informed. So on there's also information about how to vote in elections, ways to check your registration, information about candidates, and then the information that's in our ballot issues pamphlets is also on vote411.org. Linda Thomas has a new project this year, the Voter Girl Project, partnering with local Girl Scout troops to provide a one-day class to help Scouts earn citizenship badges to promote civic engagement and voting. And she is still looking for an assistant teacher or two. And then she also is looking for some high school aged girls to help out with the voting experience as a voter girl and a suffragist. So if you know somebody who might be interested, talk to Linda. And same, Linda is also still heading up our voter registration efforts for a few more months. So there's still lots of opportunities for that. So if you are a trained volunteer, watch your email and get out there. And if you're not trained, talk to Linda Thomas and it's not too late. And then I think one of the things that we don't usually ask for, we ask for people to come to our events and help with our events, but one of the things we can do most is publicity. We spend a lot of time, we spend a lot of effort, a lot of money, and a whole lot of teamwork putting all of these resources together. And it is no small amount of work. So if you want to help us out with our efforts to educate voters, just sharing with your family, your friends, your neighbors, putting it on your social media would be really helpful. So consider promoting vote411.org. That's an easy one to share. Share about the upcoming candidate forums and the ballot issues presentations. So I know that was a lot of information. If you're here in person, it's all on our backboard over there. You could go take pictures if you want to take it with you. If you are on Zoom, we will get this information out in an email. But if you all are also here in person, membership was passing out this Lego game. And a lot of the things that I just mentioned, ways to get involved and ways to get yourself informed for this election are on here. So it's a good way to kind of keep track. If you get 5 or more squares completed, not necessarily in a row, or if you're a bingo diehard, yes, do it in a row. You can fill out this QR code or go to this link. We will also send the link out in an email so it's clickable, so you don't have to type all that in. And to be entered into a prize drawing, LEGO will end on November 13th. That is after the last 2 things on here, the last voter services meeting of the year and the Voter Girl Project on November 9th. And I hope I covered everything. We are very busy. Can we have a round of applause for the voter services team and all the work they've put in this year?
Yeah, I just want to mention that Heather got commendations from the Zoom room. Thank you very much, Heather.
Wow, I'm tired just listening to her. I want to just do a quick announcement. We are still working on the strategic plan the next couple of years for the league. We had a big meeting with all of our team leaders and board not too long ago. We're going to have another meeting on September 24th. It's going to be at Odell's, little incentive for you to come if you want to. And it's from 4 to 6. It's on the website, and anybody can come. Anybody in the league can come and help participate in putting together action plans for our strategic plan. We really encourage you to get involved. And Julie is going to talk, Julie Steckhouse, who's on our board. She's a really active board member. Is going to talk to us about policies real quick.
All right, I'm going to ask Kathy if she can do a screen share to show on the website what I'm talking about. No? Probably not. Oh, well. Okay, so we're going to do this a little bit by, pretend, right? So remember, you go to the league website and you log in, and there's this new button now called Member Resources. Okay, well, there is, and I want you to take a look at it because I think you're going to like it. And a lot of work this summer, if you've noticed, there's a few of us wearing t-shirts. A lot of work this summer. Oh, it's not there. Oh man, Member Resources went into really trying to bring you some good things on the website. And one of those, if you go to Governance and Finance, you'll find the League Policies Manual. Really encourage you to take a look at this. I know as a relatively new member, like 3 or 4 years, I could not figure out what all this history was in the league. So we wrote it down. In fact, I think someone named Jerry Wilson sort of said, you should be writing this down and get to work on it. And we did get to work on it. We know it might not be perfect, but we think that it's going to really be helpful to you, particularly anything related to financial. You'll probably want to take a look at that because you might have expenses or you might want to wonder how the budget gets done or whatever it might be. So it's all in there. Please take a look at it. I think you're going to find it helpful. We can go back, Kathy, too. We just talked about the strategic plan. If you want to click on that. She's only giving me 5 minutes, so I'm talking fast. It's right there. Take a look at some of the cool things that are planned for this league to really jumpstart the already great things going on, but take it to a different level. So you'll be able to find the big items there. And finally, for those that haven't been following this, let's go back to Member Resources. You'll see we have, okay, this is very cool, league property. Did you ever wonder where the note cards were? Who had the note cards, right? I don't know. Who has the microphone? Is it, well, guess what? Thanks to Kathy Maurer, if you can click on it, you can now go and find out who has what. Yeah, I know that is really cool. So it's great. We've got flyers and we've got note cards and we've got banners and all sorts of things. And several individuals are committed to keeping this up to date. So I hope you find those helpful. I want to thank Kathy Maurer and Keith, way back there, Kathy Wilson, Linda Hutchinson, Mary Dietrich. This group has put in the summer, and I hope you like what you're seeing. So thank you all very much.
And more to come. Okay, Trish, are you coming up to give us a report on the Women's Equality Day? And also for our drawing for a prize, right? Okay, so should I go get the bucket? Okay. All right.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Trish Warner, and I was honored to be part of the team that planned the Women's Equality Day celebration that we just had out at the Sweetheart Winery. I would like to recognize those others who are part of that planning team, and many of them are here. Julie Stackhouse, if you'd stand as I call you, Julie Hellman, and Keith, Beth DeHaven, Becky Peters. Lori's not here. Carl Rice. Marge is not here, and Kathy Marr. All right. All of these gals helped put that great event together. So I hope you've had a chance or will have the chance to go to the web page that's found under the screen that Julie had up there under news and events and view the many beautiful photos that were taken by our league photographer, Diana Sheik-Greer. Some of these photos were sent into NoCo Style magazine with the hopes to be included in the month of October in the About Town section at the back of each issue. NoCo Style was an in-kind sponsor of our event, and I would encourage you to take a look at the September issue because they also featured a 2-page article on the League of Women Voters done by Pat and Julie were interviewed for that article. So as far as, It's a great article. So as far as our event at the winery, we had about 120 guests. Last year we had around 80, so our event really grew this year. All came to celebrate the 3 women who were honored: Joyce Sullivan, Gretchen Haley, and Beth DeHaven. We had many good nominations that came in this year, so we asked league members to start thinking about those nominations for next year, for Women's Equality Day and for the league legacy. I had a couple of people come up and ask me at the event how they find out about when nominations can be taken, because they've already got people they'd like to nominate. Our goal was to raise $10,000 this year, and we surpassed that. We made $11,000 for the league this year. Another goal of the event was to bring more members of just our wider community to the event, not just for the league, but for our communities. And we did exceed that. I did a rough look at the guests that attended, and we had about 30 people attend the event that were not league members. Another impact of the event was that some of these non-members expressed interest in joining the league. So I'll be interested in looking at who the new members were that joined that were also part of that event. Plans are in the making already to hold the event again next August, so watch for those details to start developing. We would really like to encourage other league members to join our team. Backed by the cake that Julie's been serving, we have a sign-up sheet if you'd be interested in joining our group. Our league is filled with many people with many talents, and so we'd really ask that you think about joining the team. And we will begin work in January for that. So, thank you.
I'm sorry. Oh, go get the prizes. Okay. Prizes in just a moment. So again, I want to thank all of you for showing up. We are a big family here, and I have always been so impressed by the women that I work with through the league. And there's room for everybody here, but it does take a village. It does take a village to run this place. And since we raised so much money this year, thank you, Women's Equality Day, we are also interested in your ideas for how can we better our community by educating voters, and our tagline of defending democracy and empowering voters. How can we spend our money to get more people out and get them voting? We're doing a huge postcard campaign for young voters. You know young people in the community? Do they high school students, get them educated on voting? Help us do more of that. Are ready for the big drawing? There are no names on here, so I can't cheat. Pick my name. Huh? Well, get your pick. They have the tickets numbered. Yeah. All right. So you want me to pull a name or not a name, a number? Okay.
Okay, 13859-017. All right.
Come on up.
So we have a set of note cards. All right, we have another set of note cards. 13859-012. Sure.
Really the last
The last three, 012.
One more?
Two more.
Okay.
001. Oh, maybe they
All
left.
right. SOL.
016. You get the yard sign. And the wire.
Yeah, don't forget. Oh, you can buy those also.
All right, last one. This is the Women's Equality Day necklace that was made by a jeweler here in Colorado. 003. Gone. 039. Zero 20. All right.
Oh, I forgot to mention something. We have a CSU researcher that has been here and he's doing a community survey. And if you want to be involved with that community survey, there's a place to sign up for it. Oh, he left. He took his survey away. Never mind. All right, there's plenty of time left. If you want to talk to the table, sign up for something to do. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Zoom world out there. See you next time.